So the consumer notice goes over the 5 ways that a realtor is licensed to represent clients in Pennsylvania. The first way is as a seller's agent. When you're signed as a seller's agent, in other words, you've signed a listing agreement either for a rental or a sale, you have a fiduciary and ethical responsibility to the seller. So your work is to represent the seller. When you sign a buyer agency agreement, you have a fiduciary and ethical responsibility to the buyer. In other words, your representation is only for the buyer. A dual agent is somebody who is representing both sides. In other words, the buyer comes to my listing and I represent the listing side and the buyer side. That's called dual agency. Both parties must consent to this in Pennsylvania. Designated agency is much more common than dual agency. Designated agency means that both the agents involved in the transaction are actually working for the same company. So, and not just the same company, but the same brokerage. So a lot of companies have more than one brokerage in the city. But if both agents are working for Compass PA, then each agent is designated for each client. And the company itself is a dual agent. Final way, and the least common, is called transactional agency. Transactional agency, the theory behind this is that, you're buying your buddy's house and there's no negotiating that'll have to happen. And so the realtor represents neither side and is just basically facilitating the transaction with paperwork, etc. The problem with this is most brokerages won't allow it because in the end it becomes dual agency. Everybody needs some help, and as a transactional agent, you really aren't allowed to help either side. On page 2 of the consumer notice, it goes over some of the general duties and responsibilities of a licensed realtor during the course of a transaction. So in other words, we're expected to act in good faith. We're expected to follow the state laws. We're expected to follow seller disclosure law. We're expected to present any conflicts of interest that may arise during the transaction. All of these things that you would expect are written out in the consumer notice. And when you sign this document, basically, it's not a contract, as it states very clearly at the top. You are acknowledging that your agent has explained these things to you. I think this is probably the most important document you will sign other than the agreement of sale during your transaction. I hope this was helpful.